Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. The announcement came like a thunderclap across the global financial stage. Prime Minister Muhammad Shia al-Sudani, standing before the people of Iraq and the world, declared what generations of Iraqis and countless international investors had long awaited. The revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is no longer a possibility or a matter of rumor, but the law of the land. In one stroke, the years of speculation, analysis, whispers, and denials transformed into a historic reality. This declaration not only reshaped the financial destiny of Iraq but also echoed through every corner of the international monetary system. Sudani's words carried more than political weight. They carried the force of a nation reclaiming its financial sovereignty after decades of struggle, instability, and rebuilding. For years, the dinar has been the subject of intense debate. Analysts from Baghdad to New York and London to Dubai have tracked every statement from the Central Bank of Iraq, parsed every line of international financial agreements, and dissected every report about reserves, oil sales, and foreign debt. For the Iraqi people, however, the story was deeply personal. It was not just about charts, currency swaps, and IMF guidelines. It was about dignity, about seeing their country restored to its rightful place among the economic powers of the region and the world. When Sudani declared that the revaluation is now legally enshrined, millions of Iraqis felt a surge of national pride. Their currency, once dismissed and devalued, would now stand tall again. Sudani's declaration was not made lightly. It followed months of high-stakes negotiations, delicate economic balancing, and quiet but determined preparation. The Iraqi parliament had passed key financial reforms earlier in the year, setting the stage for this moment. The Central Bank of Iraq worked in concert with international bodies to ensure that the transition would be orderly and recognized worldwide. Oil revenues, foreign reserves, and trade partnerships were all aligned behind the move. The timing was critical, designed not only to restore confidence but also to shield the nation from shocks or instability. For investors who had long believed in the possibility of this day, it was vindication. For skeptics who dismissed the idea of a revaluation as fantasy, it was a moment of stunned recognition that Iraq had rewritten the script. The Prime Minister's speech emphasized that this revaluation was not simply an economic maneuver but a declaration of sovereignty. For decades, Iraq's financial system had been distorted by war, sanctions, corruption, and external manipulation. Rebuilding the currency was as much about national pride as it was about technical adjustments. By anchoring the dinar's new value in law, Sudani and his government created an unshakable foundation that no rumor or foreign pressure could undermine. It was no longer an administrative decision subject to reversal but a structural, legal reality embedded in Iraq's economic future. The global reaction was immediate. Trading platforms updated their screens, banks issued statements, and financial media outlets rushed to report on the sudden transformation. The dinar, long traded in obscure corners of the foreign exchange market, suddenly appeared alongside the world's most important currencies. Headlines proclaimed the revaluation as one of the most significant monetary shifts in recent history. Analysts debated its ripple effects across oil markets, trade balances, and regional stability. Central banks took notice, recalibrating their portfolios to account for Iraq's newly empowered currency. What had been a speculative conversation among a dedicated community of followers was now front page news and a central topic in boardrooms across the globe. For Iraqis on the ground, the change was more than symbolic. Overnight, purchasing power improved. Salaries, pensions, and savings accounts that had long seemed meager suddenly carried weight. The promise of a stronger dinar meant that imported goods, education abroad, and medical treatments outside the country became more affordable. For merchants and business owners, the ability to engage in international trade with a respected and valuable currency opened new horizons. For young people, the prospect of a stable financial future no longer felt like a dream deferred. The revaluation carried with it the promise of a generation stepping into prosperity. Sudani's victory declaration framed the revaluation as the culmination of years of struggle against corruption, inefficiency, and international doubt. He praised the resilience of the Iraqi people, who endured hardship while the nation painstakingly built the reserves, systems, and political stability required for this moment. He acknowledged the sacrifices made by those who worked tirelessly to modernize the banking sector, implement anti-money laundering measures, and enforce fiscal discipline. His words were not merely about policy but about collective triumph, a nation standing taller than it had in decades. The legal framework behind the revaluation was designed to ensure transparency, stability, and long-term sustainability. Laws passed in Parliament required that the central bank maintain a certain level of reserves, peg the dinar against a basket of currencies rather than a single foreign unit, and established mechanisms for periodic reviews to adjust for inflation and market conditions. This legal architecture transformed the revaluation from a one-time event into an enduring system. It was not a fleeting moment of euphoria but the beginning of a structured, lawful framework to sustain Iraq's place in the global economy. By embedding the revaluation into law, Iraq avoided the pitfalls of arbitrary devaluations or politically motivated reversals that have plagued other nations. International observers noted that the move positioned Iraq as a central player in the financial future of the Middle East. With the world's fifth-largest proven oil reserves, Iraq's ability to back its currency with tangible wealth made the dinar an attractive asset for investors. Coupled with reconstruction efforts, modernization of infrastructure, and growing trade partnerships with Asia, Europe, and the Gulf states, Iraq's economy suddenly looked like a rising star. The revaluation gave financial institutions a clear signal. Iraq is open for business, not as a dependent nation but as a self-assured player with legal and economic strength to match. For the global community of dinar investors, this moment was historic. Many had waited for years, sometimes decades, holding on through waves of doubt and misinformation. Forums, chat rooms, and financial communities lit up with celebration as confirmation poured in from official sources. The stories of those who invested small sums in the dinar, often against the advice of friends and financial advisors, now became stories of perseverance rewarded. For some, it meant financial security. For others, it meant the resources to pursue dreams long postponed. The atmosphere was one of jubilation, but also of vindication. The belief that Iraq's potential would one day be realized had finally been proven correct. Sudani's government, however, was quick to temper excitement with caution. In his address, the Prime Minister urged citizens and investors alike to act responsibly, to avoid scams and fraud, and to recognize that the revaluation was not a lottery but a foundation for sustainable prosperity. He outlined measures to protect citizens, including regulated exchange procedures, public awareness campaigns, and strict penalties for those attempting to exploit the situation. The goal was not only to celebrate but to ensure that the newfound strength of the dinar translated into long-term development, not short-lived windfalls. The global financial system will undoubtedly continue to analyze the implications for months to come. Will the revaluation prompt other resource-rich nations to reconsider their currency strategies? Will it shift alliances in the Middle East as Iraq leverages its stronger financial position to negotiate new trade deals? Will the influx of foreign capital accelerate Iraq's modernization, or will it create challenges of inflation and capital flight? These questions will dominate economic debates in the near future, but what is clear is that Iraq has fundamentally altered its trajectory. For the Iraqi people, the victory was more than financial. It was emotional, cultural, and historic. The revaluation of the dinar symbolized the end of a long era of humiliation and uncertainty. It signified that Iraq had reclaimed not only its currency but also its voice in the world. The words, now law, carried immense power. They meant permanence, legitimacy, and recognition. No longer could the revaluation be dismissed as rumor or fantasy. It was codified, binding, and irreversible. For a nation that has endured invasion, division, and turmoil, this stability was priceless. Sudani himself emerged from this moment as a statesman of historic stature. By delivering on a promise that many considered impossible, he cemented his legacy not only within Iraq but on the global stage. Leaders of other nations congratulated him, financial institutions expressed confidence in his leadership, and the Iraqi people rallied behind him with renewed trust. His declaration of victory was not about personal glory but about national renewal. Yet history will undoubtedly remember him as the leader who restored the dinar and, with it, Iraq's pride. The days and weeks following the declaration will be filled with both excitement and adjustment. Banks across Iraq will process exchanges, international businesses will update contracts, and governments will revise trade agreements. Families will gather to discuss how their lives will change, whether through increased purchasing power, new opportunities abroad, or the ability to invest in their children's futures. The ripple effects will touch every household, every business, and every institution. The revaluation is not a distant concept but a daily reality that reshapes the lives of millions. At the same time, Iraq's government knows that success must be managed carefully. With new wealth comes new responsibility. Sudani emphasized the importance of channeling increased revenues into infrastructure, education, healthcare, and technology. He called on Iraqis to think not only of immediate gains but of generational transformation. The revaluation, in his vision, is not an endpoint but a beginning, a catalyst for Iraq to build a diversified, modern economy that no longer relies solely on oil. This forward-looking strategy will be essential if the legal victory of today translates into the sustained prosperity of tomorrow. International markets will continue to react, and as they do, Iraq's choices will matter more than ever. Transparency, fiscal discipline, and smart investment will determine whether the dinar's strength is maintained and amplified. If managed wisely, the revaluation could trigger a virtuous cycle of growth, attracting foreign capital, expanding the middle class, and positioning Iraq as a hub of commerce and innovation in the region. If mismanaged, the opportunity could slip away, leaving Iraq vulnerable once again. Sudani's government appears fully aware of these stakes, and his declaration of victory was not the end of the battle but the opening of a new chapter. The story of the Iraqi dinar has always been larger than finance. It is a story about resilience, about a nation refusing to be defined by its hardships. The revaluation enshrined in law is a triumph not only of economics but of spirit. It tells the world that Iraq has risen, that its people's sacrifices were not in vain, and that its future will be written on its own terms. From the streets of Baghdad to the halls of Wall Street, from small villages to international capitals, the reverberations of this declaration will be felt for years to come. Sudani declared victory, and in doing so, declared that Iraq had reclaimed control of its destiny. The Iraqi dinar is no longer a speculative token of hope but a legally recognized pillar of national strength. The world will continue to analyze, to speculate, and to adapt, but for Iraq, the meaning is simple and profound. After decades of uncertainty, their currency stands tall, their sovereignty affirmed, and their future wide open. Like and subscribe for more videos.